Hey guys, thanks again for tuning in. So, today I just want to cover the history of the impeachment process and just my overall reaction to the impeachment hearings. I'm certainly in the camp of believing that the impeachment overall is just a farce. It's just more so a prolonged filibuster and just a hit job just to deviate Trump and his concentration elsewhere. It's basically just a muckraking campaign just to drag his name kind of in the dirt before 2020 and to convince, I would just say, normies in the middle that Trump is just, his admin's just full of chaos and just for people to concentrate on this. So, Trump, again, he's a fighter. He's going to defend himself. The Democrats know this, so he's just going to tweet all day about it. Yeah, I wish he would really start to concentrate on things that are important. I mean, he's trying to push us to the USMCA. I really hope that Pelosi in Congress votes on it soon because I know it's expiring soon. But anyway, overall, the Democrats have just been constantly assailing Trump. Ever since he took office in January 20th, 2017. They declared their resistance even back then. So just the Mueller report, the tax investigation, sexual assault claims, and now the impeachment inquiry just all seems to point, to as an object just to render the executive branch just powerless. So I think this whole process is just kind of, looking to ruin Trump's legacy and just, maybe convince people that aren't really paying attention. So, as you may know, there's two other instances where, a president was impeached in American history. It was Andrew Johnson and Bill Clinton. So people actually confuse and think that Nixon was impeached. He actually had articles of impeachment cast against him, but he wasn't technically impeached. But I'm going to go through each and just kind of display how the Democrats are just weaponizing impeachment against Trump, just using it for political motives and not really, the process it was intended to be used as by the founding fathers. So, back to Nixon, though, he, really screwed up. He had Watergate, so he basically had people look and break into the DNC in DC at Watergate. I believe it was like a hotel complex. He lied, was refusing subpoenas, finally got forced to release tapes that were recorded in the White House, which detailed. I know the Supreme Court basically forced him to release these tapes, and once they got released, it was basically like the smoking gun, and no one would really support him. His whole process of impeachment basically took about over a year or close to a year. Similar to today, it's been ongoing. But I will say that conservative media outlets are slightly misleading when saying Schiff is only holding closed door meetings like no other process before. The Nixon inquiry had both closed door and public hearings. So it's similar to the Trump inquiry, only difference is that Nancy Pelosi didn't call for a vote to establish the inquiry like the Nixon inquiry, which was done with a House vote that was voted 410 to 4. So, there's bad information from both sides, so just be careful. But, overall, Nixon definitely broke the rules. And when you look at the actual definition, he definitely deserved to resign. Easily said he just deserved impeachment and removal, but they just didn't get to that point. So what constitutes, articles for impeachment? So just according to the Constitution, the president, vice president, all other civil officers of the United States, they may be removed for impeachment and conviction of treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors. So the latter part is actually quite broad. It derives from Old English law, somewhere around like the late Middle Ages. But Benjamin Franklin believed it was when the executive office just rendered himself obnoxious. Other constitutional convention delegates concurred. Basically when the president abuses his office, broke trust with the public, which certainly can be broad and, open to interpretation. This kind of brings me to Bill Clinton, though. From my perspective, when Clinton was defending himself in the rape case against Paula Jones, his deposition claimed that he had no sexual relationship with Monica Lewinsky. And not only that, he said he'd never been in a room with her alone. So he lied on national television about it, too. He lied in his deposition. So this definitely goes to the point of breaking trust with the American public. So that falls under an impeachable offense according to Benjamin Franklin's scope. So the actual first impeachment of a public official was in 1804. It was a federal judge named John Pickering due to his constant intoxication. So he was just always hammered and on the bench. I think he was in New Hampshire, somewhere in the Northeast, but he got impeached. But let's look at other presidential impeachment. So the other one was Andrew Johnson. So Andrew Johnson was impeached in 1868 with 11 articles of impeachment. Basically the radical Republicans just hated him. They did for several reasons, but the Senate was unable to find a 230 guilty verdict. They only fell short by one vote. But the main focus of his impeachment was the violation of the Tenure of Office Act of 1867. So they basically just passed it the year before. It restricted the removal of certain office holders without the approval of the Senate. Johnson had removed his Secretary of War, Edwin Stanton, who was actually a Lincoln appointee. Overall, Stanton just opposed Johnson's lenient policies against the South, so he just wanted him out. But basically, the actual act that made him up for impeachment, the Tenure of Office Act, it was actually later appealed by Congress, repealed rather, in 1887. So that's why you can see Trump like today, where he just removes people like Tillerson or Kelly as he pleases. It really didn't make sense as a law, but according to the law then, he did break it. But Johnson's impeachment process was actually pretty short. It began in late February of 1868 and it ended in mid-May. So, it was almost a month, but not really that long at all. Basically, radical Republicans just hated him because, like I said, he's from the South. He was from originally North Carolina, but then I know that he moved to Tennessee, I think in his teens. He tried to protect the former Confederate states and, protect their laws. I do know that when the Emancipation Proclamation was declared in 1863, Lincoln actually exempted Tennessee, his state, against, giving up their slaves. So this is all due to Johnson. Johnson asked Lincoln to exempt his state, and not to mention because he had slaves. So, he also fought against the Civil Rights Act of 1866, and he vetoed it only to be overridden by Congress. So, the radical Republicans nearly succeeded in removing him, but failed, again, by one vote. But it was true that, Johnson did break the law when it came to the Tenure of Office Act. So now let's look at Trump's impeachment hearings. So on Friday, former Ambassador Yovanovitch testified, and it basically just showcased her bias to the world. For those who don't know, she was an Obama appointee and was fired by Trump for pushing back on Trump's foreign policy. When you look at Obama, he fired all Bush-appointed ambassadors, so I don't really see anything that's wrong with this. I tweeted out a few days ago that people should not be surprised that the man who's known for saying "you're fired" fires people he disagrees with. So that's expected when he was elected, and that's what he's doing. So no surprise there. And she also confirmed that the investigation of Burisma, so Hunter Biden's company that he worked for, was never fully closed, and it was, quote, dormant and never fully closed and done with. So this begs the question, why was it dormant? If the Obama administration already admitted that it was corrupt, you're saying that there was an investigation into its corrupt behavior, why didn't this investigation continue? Why was it dormant? So when Trump asked Yovanovitch to actually look into this, was she protecting the Bidens? She wasn't voted in, and she acts like she's, protecting Democrat policies here. So, ambassadors are meant to follow the direction of the executive office, and clearly she wasn't. Yeah, so she was fired. I mean, it's pretty simple. She even admitted that Trump didn't take bribes when she was pressed on the question, which is an impeachable offense if he did. So really, what's she doing up there? She was called as a witness by the Democrats, and it only further proved that she was kind of protecting the Bidens. So, even today, so you have, Mr. Vindman, Lieutenant Colonel Vindman. It's quite apparent that, he might be the source of all of this madness. First he said he didn't leak. Then he admitted to speaking to two individuals not in the White House, one being George Kent and the other being some unnamed individual in the intelligence community. And he was cut off by Adam Schiff because Adam Schiff wanted to basically protect him. So, Nunes was clearly narrowing down, who the whistleblower was, and, made it pretty apparent that Vindman definitely knew who he was. And even Vindman's superior, Morrison, he's testifying soon. And according to the transcripts, he said he doesn't trust Vindman's judgment. So that puts a hole in his testimony. And the Democrats, of course, are going to let this slide. So I'm really curious to see once Morrison testifies before the panel, what's going to happen with that. So, Stefanik also had some good moments too. She kind of carried the day when she pressed Vindman and he admitted that Burisma is corrupt, and it represents a conflict of interest, and pointed out that, Schiff won't even allow Hunter Biden to testify or be questioned. So, clearly the Democrats are just controlling the ball here in the court. So, it just reeks of corruption, and that this is just political theater. We kind of can tell, even when he shifts his language, when he said transfer, then Schiff corrected him to say something else. It just reeks of just corruption, in that it's just political. It's a play. It's like watching a dumpy movie with dumpy actors, and I feel like I'm watching The Room with Tommy Wiseau at times. But it's just clear that this is just something that should be addressed as well. What really annoys me is, you have people like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, who are American and United States senators, and they already have their minds made up, regarding impeachment. The Senate trial is just that. It's a trial. So witnesses must be called, evidence must be presented, and the Senate is the jury. So imagine if you were on jury duty and you already made up your mind about the case just based on reading the papers and stuff online. So if Liz or Bernie actually had a shred of honor left in their souls, they would simply comment that this is their duty as United States senators to not comment on impeachment until they see the articles of impeachment presented to the Senate and the evidence is argued upon. So, of course, they're just trying to placate to their voting base and say that impeachment. But, I think the rest of America is realizing there was a Politico poll. So that's a leftist website that actually did a poll with independents. And I read that they dropped already 15 points. So, the rest of America is starting to realize that these hearings are just a sham. And, I'm really, curious to see, again, what Morris's testimony looks like. I think it's coming tomorrow or in a few days. I'm not exactly sure. I need to look into that. But, thanks for tuning in, guys, and I'll catch you on the next one.